Hello RPG community, Lester Crow and Strolling Bones here, and I just wanted to address another issue, not necessarily an issue, but a topic that I kind of got mulling over with T.E. Walker, or Tanner. We were just kind of chatting over Skype, candidly for fun, and talking about differences in opinion on role-playing, to say the least. Fair enough, though. That's what I love about this game, is it invites so many. Well, this actually, it's not just a game. It's so much. It's so beyond and far beyond a game that's a whole other topic for another time. But basically, the idea that the hobby brings in so many differing types of people, although they tend to have commonality in desire for intelligence or creativity. But we were kind of discussing some ideas, and we came to kind of discussing the prospect of game masters' aids. And I'm not talking about the sexually transmitted disease or infection, as they're now called. It's true, they're STIs, not STDs. So you guys all remember that. Wrap it up. It's always the smartest. Anyway, we were talking about our differences in opinion on this. I think it stemmed more so from his video about dice mechanics and how he was talking about how he's trying to work in a new philosophy on using dice in his new game system, which actually seems really interesting. He was describing, well, he has been through his videos, but I mean a little bit more, not necessarily openly, but a little bit more in depth and immediately, in a couple of conversations we've had on Skype. And I really like his system. I think it's great. It seems really interesting. He's trying to give a lot of opportunity for players to create characters that a lot of other role-playing systems don't afford for. And anyway, he was talking about the dice mechanic used in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the 3rd edition. The 2nd and 1st editions are using D-percentile. So you're rolling two D10s and coming up with a percentage, trying to hit the target number or lower. That's essentially how it is dealt with. But in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the 3rd edition, there are multiple different sets of dice. Actually, I'll show them to you here. Sorry about that. I got everything out because we had a game last night. I got a new group together. It's a little bit smaller, so a little bit more manageable. I wasn't prepped, so the adventure went off good. Everybody had a good time, but I could have done it a little bit better. However, let me just start separating some of these, and I'll start showing them to you. And Tanner and I were talking about these dice. And now what Tanner says, and I credit him on this, and I never really thought about it in this point before, so something that I've been mulling over for a little while to kind of see. He's a really smart guy, like really, really intelligent. Going to college, I think, in California somewhere, but smart as a whip. And I wanted to address a few things here. Now, there are essentially in this game there are 7 dice, seven different types of dice. This is the bag of dice I got. It's a Patron. It's a Patron Platinum felt bag, or velvet bag. Anyway, it's badass. So we were discussing the mechanics, and the point that he brought up is that it's almost like these dice encourage you to form the story in a specific way. And he has a point. To a degree, he is totally 100% correct. However, it is actually in the rules written to be open to interpretation with these. Essentially what you do in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the 3rd edition, we're going to call it Fantasy Roleplay for brevity's sake for the rest of this video, because I'm not very brief. This video will probably end up being 10 minutes long. But anyway, you take a dice pool based on your characteristics and other elements. So you're going to, when you assemble a dice pool, first of all, you're going to take a dice very similar to this. This dice here is a characteristics dice, and this is the blue dice. There are 8 sides to this dice, and of the 8 sides, 2 of them are blank. Sorry guys, I'm really bad at looking into mirrors and making sense of it all. So here you go, you got the hammer, which I'll turn up. You got the boon, and you got the success. Now, those are the two symbols that show up on your characteristics dice, which are blue. So say your character has, I always like to use strength as the baseline stat because that's the one people can identify with the easiest. Strength or agility usually. So let's say you have 3 strength, which is the average mortal's strength score in the world of Warhammer. Humans, dwarves tend to be a little stronger, but humans, goblins, things like that, 3 strength. So you're going to take 3 of these blue dice as your essential base pool. Then there's a mechanic called stance. Now, there are a lot of videos that explain this stuff better out there, and I do want to touch on the mechanics and setting of Warhammer a little bit further in more videos, but essentially, you are then going to gain these, and these particular dice are your stance dice. There's a myriad of different symbols on these, and you can get better views of these. You've got successes. The little teardrop or blood drop there is a fatigue symbol. So if you're trying to do a mental stat, you will suffer stress if you generate one of those, or you'll suffer fatigue if it's a physical stat. But then you have all sorts of different things. This one is reckless dice, and this one is high risk, high reward. 10 sides of the dice, 2 blank sides, and several bad sides. This represents a conservative stance. So these will go in and substitute for these. So if you have 3 strength and you want to go 1 conservative, well, you'll take 2 blue dice, 1 green dice, and you want to roll. You want to go reckless, though. This is low risk, low reward. You suffer chances of delay. But the delay can be represented in a myriad of different ways. And I think what Tanner was getting at is that it kind of points you in a specific direction. Well, yeah, this is what happened, and it kind of tells you how to tell the story. Well, mechanically, yes, but you can tell the story any way you want once you've rolled the dice. So you roll the dice, you get exhausted, you generate several boons, which are like nifty, tricky side effects. And within the rules as written, you can use those nifty, tricky side effects to do things like recharge, fatigue, and there's several other options for when you, just baseline options for when you generate 2 boons. Same with 2 banes, which are the little skull guys. Anyway, I'll keep going on. So at the very basic, you're going to have those blue dice and then those red or green options, depending on your stance, the aggression or lack thereof that you take in a specific action. And this is all role played, and mechanically it works. There are bits to track it, but it is all role played in general. Good role players will do this. Now, the other beneficial dice that exist are the white dice, which is called a fortune dice. Now, on this, there are 3 blank sides and 3 good fortunate sides. 2 successes, 1 and 1 boon. Boon being the nifty little side effects. Now, those are all cancelable by challenge dice and misfortune dice, which we'll get into later. But the white dice are fortune, represented by having the high ground, clever role playing, all sorts of things. If you're specialized in certain things, you get these guys, if you get the drift. You're trying to generate at least 1 success at the end result. The other beneficial dice you get is this, and this represents expertise, training for the most part. This comes into play if you've trained in a skill. There are multiple positive effect symbols on here. One of them, I think they should have come up with a better design for this personally, but to each his own. Maybe they found it worked better. But anyway, that's called a righteous success, and that allows you to roll an additional yellow dice for each one of those that you generate. So if you generate this, you get to roll another one of these. If you generate another one of these, you get to roll another one, and they count as a success each. So a very good way of generating spectacular success, almost critical success. But that's what this is. Now this is one of the main symbols in the Warhammer world. It's called Sigmar's Comet. It's the twin-tailed comet that was a portent of his birth, essentially. That's the idea. But once again, I'll get into that in setting videos. That represents critical success. It can be utilized in a myriad of different mechanical ways, but story-wise, that represents not only your expertise shining through, but luck and your expertise, or the gods, or other outlying elements, and your expertise taking hold. This is getting actually quite long here in the explanation of these dice. Might have to be a video in and of itself. But then you have the challenge dice. These more so are given by the game master. I tend to keep these behind my screen, and when they do something, I offer them these. Anyway, you have your misfortune dice, which are just like fortune dice but opposite. You have 2 challenges and 1 bane. Those canceled boons, those are minor negative side effects, whereas a challenge is challenges and successes cancel each other out. Banes and boons cancel each other out. So anything like if you're attacking somebody who has got the ground on you, you might take this. This is representative of minor nuisances, minor penalties. And then you got your challenge dice. And the game as is, you can buy more packs, but the core set comes with 4 of these, and they've divided the difficulty into tiers. So you've got no dice, which is a simple task. Anybody should be able to succeed, essentially, without tons of bad luck at a simple task. If it's an easy task, you add 1 purple dice. If it is a relatively average task, you add 2 purple dice. If it's a hard task, it's 3 purple dice. And if it is a daunting task, it is 4 purple dice. Now, you'll notice several things about this. This has double challenges on it. So it can cancel out 2 successes. And this is all mechanically speaking. There's actually different cool ways on how you can implement this into your storytelling. You don't have to, but there are cool ways. And then you got the 8-pointed star there, which is the sign of chaos. And that has all sorts of really negative side effects that it triggers. So anyway, that is the dice pool mechanic for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. So if you, as an average human, were attempting an easy task, you would assemble a dice pool. Let's say you were doing it not aggressively, not conservatively at all. You would assemble 3 blue dice and 1 purple dice. Easy task, you'd roll that. If you generated at least 1 success, you would succeed at that task. And that is the essential mechanically of the game. But it lends to tons of really good role-playing. And it does kind of point towards things like if it is the blue dice that have the successes that you win, well, then it is your innate characteristics. It is suggested that you paint the story that way, but that's not how you have to do it. That's just a suggestion. It's just a way of generating successes. And I like it because it's like divining, reading the bones, casting the bones, and it just seems a little bit more fitting for the setting, at least. But we got talking about mechanics, essentially. Dice mechanics in particular, but mechanics essentially. And my question I want to ask you guys as the gaming community is this. Do you, as a game master, narrator, referee, dungeon master, whatever you want to call yourself, do you prefer to have access to aids to simplify the experience for you or streamline the experience for you? This could go from having a cell phone dice generator or probability generator to maps that you create to show them where they are. Any sort of game master aid. Do you prefer to have access to that, or do you think that that is all clunky and unnecessary? Do you think that by having that it limits you as a GM, or do you think it actually helps you and allows you to drive the story forward easier? I'm curious because as of right now, I'm developing an article that stresses its whole point is to act as an aid for game masters who are having difficulty adding believability or fun and randomness to their travel. So you're traveling from, let's use, I'm on a Warhammer kick, and I probably will be for the next couple of years. So let's use Warhammer for an example. You are traveling from Altdorf, which is the capital city of, current capital, imperial capital of the Empire, which is the mainland of humans. And you're traveling from there to Nuln, which is the industrial capital. They build steam tanks and guns, and we'll go into this setting further in other videos. But if you're traveling from that point to another point, are you doing it very dryly? Do you have a few pre-written up, flavor texts where you can read? Whatever. Anyway, what I'm doing is trying to develop an article that assists in that. Tells you what it's like to walk on a road for a long period of time, gives you basic descriptive ideas, maybe one-liners that touch on forests, the feelings and smells, sights, things along those lines. That is what I'm trying to develop myself. So I am curious to see or to hear if you guys think that it is more of a bog or a detriment to you as a game master to have access to game master aids, or if you are more the type who rather just flies from the hip. I read the setting, I have the book's all I need kind of guy. Or do you like to add on game master aids? And now you have to remember that that includes you self-made game master aids. So that includes you making maps, you making player handouts. Those are game master aids. Also, I'd like to hear what you guys think about the Warhammer dice pool mechanic. So thanks for bearing with me, guys. Talk to you later.